We're live.
Thank you. Welcome once again, my Belizean people, both at home and abroad. Welcome to our 144 edition of Belizean Affairs. Um, sitting with me virtually is Mr. Leonard Brackett, a co-host, and
Yes,
our
sir.
chairman for tonight is Mr. Gregory Brackett. But he is queuing up something in the background, but as time is our essence, we need to get the show on the road. And he will be joining us shortly because it's his show and he has a special program lined up for tonight. And as always, we show and tell. Like I say, there's a lot going on in our country. But first thing first, we also expect our next host, Miss Pitts, attorney at law, Miss Sharon Pitts. She will be joining us also. So, that said, welcome, Mr. Chairman. I was just about to welcome, Mr. Chairman. I was just about to launch, and I said that you are in the background queuing up and getting ready. But as time is an essence, we got to get the show on the road until you join us. And we were just about to get to the prayer, and I call on Mr. Leonard Brackett to lead us in prayer.
Yes, sir.
And uh, since the chairman showed up, I'll do the reading.
Okay, sir.
So could lead us in prayer, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good night, Mr. Chairman. Greg, thank you for being here
Yes.
to host tonight's program. I'll just make a short prayer for right now.
Good night, gentlemen. Again, good night to the Belizean people at home and abroad. And I am humbled to be sitting with you guys as my virtual host, hoping tonight that this program will help to educate and to open the eyes of the Belizean people about what is happening in our jewel. With that said, I go to you, Mr. Brackett, for the
Yes, sir.
prayer.
Thank you very much. I'll do a short prayer. Divine loving Father, we thank thee for this privilege that thou have accorded us. We pray that thou mayest hear our humble expression of gratitude and thankfulness to thee for having given us life in the first place, and secondly, for the opportunity to still be alive today among our family members, friends, loved ones, and the rest of humanity. Please continue to bless us, give us strength, courage, endurance, perseverance, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, that we may be able to serve the interests and needs of our people and country of Belize. Please bless my country of Belize, its people, and its leadership. Please bless this country of the United States, its people, and leadership. Please continue to bless the rest of humanity, to know our hearts, our desires, even our most secret thoughts. Please help those people who are in danger and who are being harmed sometimes for no justifiable reason. Please be merciful unto them as well, loving Father. For we ask these mercies in Jesus' name. Amen.
Mr. Wayne,
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be sitting with you and Leonard. Thank you. And I will uh, have a reading from Matthew chapter 12, 24 to 34. It says, but when the Pharisees heard it, they said, it is only by Jezebel, the of demons that this man cast out demons. Knowing their thoughts, he said to them, every kingdom divided against itself is laid waste, and no city or house divided against itself will stand. And if Satan cast out Satan, he is divided against himself. How then will his kingdom stand? And if I cast out demons by Jezebel, by whom do your sons cast them out? Therefore, they will be yours. They will be your judges. But it is by the Spirit of God that I cast out demons. Then the kingdom of God has come upon us. Or how can someone enter a strong man's house and plunder his goods unless he first bends the strong man? Then indeed he may plunder his house. However, is not with me. Whoever is not with me is against me, and whoever does not gather with me scatters. Therefore, I tell you, every sin and blasphemy will be forgotten, will be forgiven, people. But the blasphemy against the Spirit will not be forgiven. And whoever speaks a word against the Son of Man will be forgiven, but whoever speaks against the Holy Spirit will not be forgiven, either in his age or in the age to come. Either make the tree good and its fruit good, or make the tree bad and the fruit bad. For the tree is known by its fruit. Your blood of vipers, can you speak good when you are evil? Out of the abundance of your heart, the mouth speaks. That's my reading from Matthew.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. And again, good night to the people at home and abroad. And welcome to this 144th episode of Belizean Affairs.
Okay, gentlemen, you ready? 1, 2, 3.
Bala
Again, good night to the Belizean people at home and abroad. I first want to thank you guys for sitting virtually with me. Tonight's episode, I want to go back over some of our previous discussions about past incidents that took place with past governments. And the question I want to ask is Belize going back to privatization where the people's assets are slowly beginning to change hands? And I go to you first and that Mr. Brackett.
Uh, Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for granting the opportunity for me to participate in tonight's program and the particular subject of interest that we're starting out with now. It has long been my conclusion, well, not only just my conclusion, but prior to such a conclusion, it has long been my observation. Uh, just a second, I'm just trying to bring Ms. Pitts into the show. Great. Thank you. Yeah.
Good night.
Good night, Ms. Pitts.
Good night.
Just need to turn this stuff off here so it doesn't distract me in the background. I
Good
have
night,
my
Miss
extra
Pitts.
phone on.
Nice to have you. Good night.
Uh, I was just about to delve into the topic that Mr. Chairman put forward for the beginning of the program, and I saw Ms. Pitts in the background. She disappeared again. Could you help, Mr. Chairman? If she shows up again, can you just let her in while I try to focus on the question? Okay. It has
Proceed,
long been
proceed, Mr. Brackett. I will log her in as
okay,
soon as
sir.
she's back.
Yeah, thank you. Um, it has long been a concern of mine, I guess of many Belizeans, as a matter of fact. But I'm talking from my personal vantage point right now in terms of addressing this particular topic. And because I've been around, involved in the political affairs of my country for over 60 years now, it behooves me to not just speak to just what's happening currently or today. I think the chairman stipulated as well about not only just the present government, but past or previous governments as well. And I can go back as far as when we had the British colonial system under the British Honduras status before we gained independence. As a matter of fact, even before we gained self government in the earlier 60s, a lot of people used to have their own little piece of land, live in the city, and have them plot a land up the road. They have their cattle, they have um, their fruits, then grown food, and all manner uh,
Frank.
of subsistence uh, food and other material. And people were, I would say, maybe even a little better off way back then in the 60s, early 60s, than I think that a lot of people are today. Even though we had poverty back then, but it was not the kind of poverty that we have today that is so devious, devastating, and in the middle of people who today, many are rich enough to be able to help themselves and help their extended family members, as well as some strangers. Some do and some don't, of course. And in those days, people used to could just holler over the fence, go to the fence, and just lean over the fence and hear for their neighbor and ask them if they could help them out with a couple of spoons of sugar or salt or whatever. Because, of course, we never used to have stores all over the place then either, right? The stores used to be far away. And people used to be very neighborly to the point where people can do that kind of thing. without any shame, without having to feel embarrassed or think that people will look down on them or talk bad about them. Why? Because we had an attitude towards each other of my brother's keeper. We used to share, we used to barter, we used to give away, we used to go and bring down with things from off the farm, and sometimes we sell to people at the market so that they could we wholesale it to them so that they could retail, and then people go home and maybe carry the extra home for their neighbor and for their own self. Those days are long gone. Even some of the people who used to have the plot of land back then don't have those plots of land anymore. Why? Some of those very lands have been turned over to other people who squat on them and eventually end up they go and ask for title for them and pay one more leader under the table and then get people property. Now that is just one part of the problem. The other part of the problem is that the politicians then got kind of sweet on the idea that, well, the minister of land could look out for himself and his family and friends and his colleagues in cabinet and or his extended bodies as backbenchers. Or the other people who are standard bearers, who are not even elected, by the way, some of them. They go to the ministry, they walk in at the minister's office, and then ask the minister for this, ask the minister for that, and the minister facilitate them. Now, I don't have a problem with that, you know. You know, hear me talk about it, right? I don't have a problem with that. Why? Because other people could go to the minister office, sit down in the line, you know, and had big lines at the minister office. Sometimes some people go there 2, 3, 4 days in a row before their turn come up, when they get to see the minister, and the minister work out something for them, so that eventually, after a period of time and going through the process, they end up with a little piece of land, maybe for a house, or they end up with a piece of land, maybe if they go plant something and do like where the other rest of people had been doing, as I described earlier, for all those previous years.
Mr. Brackett,
I know, Mr. Chairman, but if you give me one more, less than a minute, I think I could wrap it up. Thank you. And so in these days now, the ministers, instead of them try to give the people some of the assets that belongs to public, because all the assets in free country belong to the people of the country. It belongs to the government got control of it or manage it for us, but we are supposed to at least get on a piece of land so we could pan it, sell it, or build something on it. But then feel like when they give you that, then it deprives themselves from being able to take their land there for themselves, or for them to go and sell to real estate to make money on the side, which is happening right now as we are talking, big time, much bigger than anything that we have ever thought about or seen before in our country. So the assets of the people in the country is not being used to facilitate the well-being of the people in the country anymore. It's just a few greedy grabbing up everything and could care less about anybody else. Mr. Chairman, I'm back to you, sir.
thank you, Mr. Brackett. But when I ask the question and we're speaking about assets, I'm specifically speaking about assets that has become privatized through past and present. I'm speaking about the Belize International Airport. I'm speaking about the port back then and other assets. I'm speaking about BTL. And to clarify the fact, before I go to you, Ms. Fitz or Mr. Wade, let's hear this.
Over a year and a half, we had asked both companies to submit proposals to the ministry. One in terms of looking at cost-cutting measures that we needed to do. And so both companies had provided their bids to us. When the review was done, we saw where, in the case of Smart, we would be saving quite a significant amount of money in terms of service that they provide and the accessibility to the equipment that they are providing. So it is in that context that we made the proposal to the Ministry of Finance, gone through its necessary processes, I think we're starting at the main headquarters and then see if we could expand that out. However, we're not completely going away from BTL. We're still utilizing some of the main lines that BTL offers, but we're trying to ensure that we could cut on the telephone bills at the ministry, and that was the decision we made.
I was speaking about, gentlemen, and misfit is white collar class crime. Using your office for self enrichment. This was mentioned a while back, and I want to go through it before I go to you, Mr. Victor and Mr. Wade, because we need to get it out there.
Leader of the opposition, what's going to happen if, God forbid, they were to win and he becomes prime minister? What is he going to do with respect to BTL and SpeedNet at that junction? What is he going to do with respect to the competition, to the conflict that must continue to prevail between SpeedNet, Smart, which his family owns, and I say he also owns, versus a BTL? What is he going to do if he ever gets into power? He's going to try and hobble BTL. It'll be a sellout all over again. They probably can't physically sell it because it's in the Constitution. But, Madam Speaker, I can bet they would absolutely undercut BTL for Smart. That is what the people of this country must remember.
Mr. Wade,
The man was a prophet.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, good night to you, Miss Fitz. Pleasure
Yes,
to have
good
you
night.
with us.
Thank you.
Pleasure. It's always a pleasure to have a learned somebody along with us. But anyway,
Learning.
learned it. No, you're learned. But anyway,
Yes,
guys,
thank you. Thank you.
yeah,
Mhm.
Mr. Chairman, few years ago, couple of years ago, I have mentioned this very same thing, and we had talked about this very same thing. This very same thing we talked about, right? And I kid you not, who do not believe me, they could visit and see what we had said and what I had said about Smart getting that contract and using the Prime Minister using his office for self-enrichment. But yet they want to pass little bogus law to silence us, like me, you, and people like us who call them out. But on this note, they cannot silence us because it's there for public consumption, right? So that man, like I always says, and you see that man that presented that eloquent speech there, he had his family member running BTL, He had his family member running BTL. But anyway, that's thing of the past. It should have been better. We all see the outcome of the Briseno leadership. We see how he bamboozles and get things his way. And my people, let us not forget the fuel consumption of the government and the people's vehicles and equipment. Who no one believe me, then go visit all of his own, Britannia's own fuel depot and see how much the Belizean taxpayers pay him for fuel consumption in this country. You talk about equal justice. I not got that here in a Belize. But that man, Mr. Barrow, put it eloquently, and we had spoke about it. And so said, see what happened. Because they're all 6-1 and half a dozen of the next one. So, and this is the kind of governing system we've been having for decades. and in the end, who prosper and who always suffer. And I'm not going to say much on that because they're gonna say, guys, he who feels it knows it, right? So, like, Mr. Chairman, thanks for that little clip there. And that's just and you listen to the little guy there, Mr. Bernard. The same thing he did with that CT scan, the same venom. Don't forget that, the same venom and the speedness he talked about the CT scan and he went through the proper process and all the right, and then the Prime Minister gone and counteract what he was saying in the House and all mess, right? Same thing will happen again. Went through the legal this and the legal that, and everybody get a legal chance and a good fair level playing field. Bullcrap, right? Bullcrap. The only people that believe these guys, past and present, are their cronies, their friends, close friends and family. Those are the only people that believe these guys. And they keep suckering the Belizean people, sell out all the assets, the Belizean assets, sell out all the utilities just for their own personal gain and help some kind of friend and some kind of family or something. These things got to stop, But yet they want to take us into a republic. Back to you, Mr. Chairman. Say no more.
Thank you, Mr. Wade. Ms. Fitz, I go to you on that.
Okay, I would want to comment that when it comes to countries, they have things called patrimony, dignity, your commonwealth is held in trust for the people who are the beneficiaries, shareholders, owners, and government should act as a prestigious trustee, guarding and securing that for the interests of the people. When we tend to say asset tends to be more, it connotes, and it's like putting red meat or bloody meat in front of ravenous wolves. It connotes profit making and a feeding frenzy, right? So I like to use the phrase or terms instead. Patrimony, what is it? Commonwealth for your country. Utilities, and that part of it which has to do with providing services which are of use and beneficial to the very beneficiaries, the people, and those who find themselves ourselves within our country, and as well from our country want to do business or communicate and so on. It seems to me that one of the major elements too of utilities has to do with that often overlooked crucial portion, which is national security interests, protection of some of your constitutional freedoms, such as your right to privacy. Remember that? You see how we link that, or I link that back, connect that back. Not just connectivity by way of it being, well, something for gossip mongering or passing of communication, but security of privacy and affairs of people. It seems to me antithetical that if government has majority shares or control or ownership in company A, government would farm out or receive services or pay for services from company B. It puts government in a very, and the country in a very vulnerable position. It's a fallacy. It doesn't make any sense. That like if Mr. Tan, me going go buy bread from Mr. What I say, Mr.
Kwan.
When Mr. Then he sell the same bread and Mr. Tan will end up the pay more for the bread. even if you pay less, what will happen is
They
that the
undercut the
other one
market.
is taking over the market. If it's not an outright hostile takeover, as we say in company law, then you have to watch the machinations and you have to watch whether intended or unintended consequences. Surely, the other thing is that these technologies are not, well, even rocket science is being made to mainstream. So these technologies are not rocket science. You can tend to park them on a dime. We've seen how supercomputers have shrunk in terms of space and efficiency, so that a lot of the technology now, telecommunications is mainstream. The other thing is that in countries where you have large countries, I think the US for one, where you have millions and millions of people, and by extension, billions of users who, you have satellites and certain other things and so on. But it seems to me that in places like the US, when you talk about utility companies and you have certain ones which might be taking over like others, you have a big public interest, foresight, hindsight, and a protectorate, a system. I think they call it antitrust and so on, so that you can't create backhand monopolies and gobble up and then get bigger than government regulatory agencies and bodies. As well, there's a national security concern and interest and the John public privacy interest. So we have to, as a people, understand there is one thing when you play hopscotch and you jump to and fro, pan the river, pan the bank, or pan the river bank, whether you will get smartphone or get your digit phone or services. That's one thing for the private citizen. But it's a bigger concern for the private citizen and a mandate, a public trust, conscience, if there's any of government, that you will make sure that that government-owned entity, government-controlled entity, one which has shares spread more evenly, or you'd say spread out more equitably across the board with private citizens' interests, you would see that there's nothing, no hard science, no hard figures to crunch. That is simple and basic. You will always maintain that that is your go-to, your company that you will decide. And I will want to say, by way of observation from other citizens out there seems to be a cry that I don't know why there's something about cutting down government use of telephones, because we're cognizant that certain people working with the government, maybe contract officers and others, they have their telephone and communication budgets, right?
They got raised on it the other day.
But I have to say this. There is a notion and a cry and a realization by many members of the public that I think you should give an award for a government officer department which answers phones. Have you ever called a government office lately?
Sad.
Can you ask yourself, what has a government department done for me lately by way of answering the phone? And I will tell you, public citizen user on the other end, you have to wait on the phone and what you call it, digital, whoever, whether Johnny, or Johnny come lately, or Susan dozing, answer it. You feel yourself lucky, but usually it seems they want modernize, so AIs too. Well, the lady from Silicon Valley, the expert, I can't remember her name, she managed to say, I think it was last year, she wrote that artificial intelligence is neither artificial nor intelligent. You want people-based services. And people, public servants must take the Pepitos break and cut it in half and answer the telephone man. Or, it must be, you don't have to be schooled or scolded to say, a few private companies, you turn in your phone when you go on a business premise, because there has been an epidemic, not just falafoot bad fashion, of people in the private sector. They answer for their phone and for their boss or their boss client or customers seem interruptive of their personal discussion. Now there's something where, of course, we're all mature and know if somebody has an emergency or an important call, there is an code man, an unspoken one, where you know what? You're not listening to people conversation, you're allowed any privacy. But it can't be that you the box out the public answering the phone. No, I don't want to stray from that, What I'm saying very clearly and simply is that it's not a choice to be made either or either. The Bajan may say, and I don't mean to make light, somebody said they ask a Bajan, Barbadian. They are the best with the English apparently in the Caribbean, self-experts, and some Belizean ask, well, is the word either or is it either? And the Bajan said, either, meaning it's one and the same thing, no matter how you pronounce it. So it's a government utility company that must be utilized, that must have its resources developed, that, if we take a loss as a country, right, the public takes a loss, So if there's a windfall or a profit to be made or something to be plowed back, the benefit has to be for the country and the people of Belize. It's simple. I don't know how we have to hammer this across anybody's head. This one's, what we have to say, I don't know that, this one, confound me. I think what happens is that, remember I say, and I use the word kaleidoscope, but you have some constructed things where make feel look like the confusion and people get mesmerized by the arguments and so on. This thing, they're right before we got it. What we going to go buy from somebody else for? The only time I hear any company buy retail product or utility from another one, that if they want to get maybe inside information, that if they want to get some trade advantage which isn't apparent, that if maybe they might invest and then you see their vulnerability later on, and then what starts as friendly becomes something like, you know what?
Hostile
You know
takeover.
what? We don't need you. We don't need you. And guess what? And then there's a creation, a specter of doubt, and you know what? You need to modernize. You need this, you need that. And before you know it, it's a camel in a tent approach. You know what the camel do? Put in a nose, smell, sniff from, put in a head, yai, a peep from, put in the head in the ear and listen. First set of foot, then the hump, then the second hump, the rump, and who they in it and who they out. No man, this one, keep it for the people, man. This thing, if there's any conscience, if there's any notion, if you no slip and not say, people out there, as Mr. Golson used to say, in the diplomatic front, the international, when it came to the security of the country, when the leaders and the diplomats and the politicians make mistake and blunder and put this country in peril or in danger or disadvantage, listen to the conscience and the voice of the people, not heed it. The people who you think are unassuming, they have the answer. The simple thing people that ask, but why you're going to do that with somebody else when the government control one company, right? Is it that the government trying to purchase smart? Is it that smart near smart, so because of that you could go to the one where get smart? Is it that BTL name will be changed to outsmart? No man, it carries the country's name, Belize Telecommunications Limited,
Miss
right?
Fitz, if I may,
Thank
Miss
you.
Fitz, if I may, and I thank you. The question that I was asked when I was speaking, and rightfully in line with what you are saying, are we moving back to devaluating it then so someone can buy it as it happened before? We need to look at all these factors because it seems to me that we are going down that road. Last Monday, I had a topic where I was speaking about capitalism.
Mr. Chairman,
And
what you just said
yes,
is not
Mr. Brackett,
is happening exactly as you're saying it, but it's not because of an error, omission, or oversight. It's a deliberate intent to mess up the Belize Telephone Company so that Smart becomes the better entity, better provider, and people can switch to Smart. And if they don't want to switch to Smart, they are forced to switch because at the end of the day, BTL will not be on the level of Smart after a few years. That's where we are heading. And eventually to turn around and sell BTL because then it can't compete with Smart. That's the game. But sorry,
I,
sir.
I thank you, Mr. Brackett. But as I was saying, on Monday night, we had this discussion about capitalism.
Mhm.
And I was telling you guys and the people at home and abroad that capitalism and republic goes with one another because as a part of capitalism, it's a free flow for all entities that has big businesses. I find that we are moving to an era where I would say the present government does not want regulation. And I can see it more and more happening because the people that are placed over some of these entities are not afraid to say it. And I go to a video and I want you guys and the people at home to listen to it.
It's a short file. It's a bridge and giving us a window within which we can set matters right and do the things we need to do to actually fix it.
You know, I wish I had more time.
Right.
I see a caller and the time is limited.
Right.
I really have a problem with your suggestion that what we need more of to solve the energy problem in Belize is more capitalism. When you're dealing, your argument you're making is one where, okay, but once you get on that lane, where does that lead you?
Well, that's the lane we're on.
No. When you get on that lane, when you get on the lane where there's not a preoccupation to ensure that you have regulatory presence that controls the price, you do not become completely at the mercy of capitalism.
All right, can I help you there?
So
if you get decisions from the regulator that corrects market when it's wrong and sets it right, you're great, works great. But if you're getting wrong decision that in fact distorts the market and compromises the ability of the market to produce the result, then all you're doing is creating a perversion.
So
regulation in and of itself isn't necessarily a good thing.
Who owns the bus coming out of Mexico, where President Nicole all the way in Belize, because they're operating so efficiently?
I don't know, Aldo.
Who owns it?
I don't know.
It's a government-owned transportation system.
So it's subsidized.
So it's subsidized.
Yeah.
So technically speaking, they should have had some rundown buses that come from across Mexico. We over here now, you're saying that
you use the taxes to buy better buses than what the people pay for when they use it.
You just said the problem. You just said the problem where exists in Belize when you think about the bus and we have so much people that use public transportation. You are saying here that the only way that we end up have one better public transportation system, that if we stop prevent the buses from charge more than they charge.
No, you could subsidize it, but government isn't doing that.
But subsidizing are not part of your market system, you know. Not like that way they talk about.
It's kicking in to help the market when the market fails. That's fine. The trouble is when you kick in when the market isn't failing and just pervert it.
So the controlling of energy price, the controlling of electricity price to make it, you know, go higher than where the people could bear.
No, that's not what it is. It says you're supposed to set the price by reference to what the cost, what is enough to cover the cost and allow the utility companies to survive. There's nothing in those regulations that says price it to where the people can bear. And maybe that's the tension that produces the problem.
So
we're not covered.
So we are be better if we allow BEL and everybody where they make energy for charge as much as they want to charge.
Need for charge for run the utility.
Take regulation.
In competition, prices
this is
fixed by
classic Republican policy. This is right wing. This is.
It's pure economic theory.
This is straight.
Prices fixed by demand.
Chicago School of Economics. This is straight Friedman. You're the
yes,
true
it's what they teach you at school.
Yeah.
So price is fixed by where demand meets supply. That's price. If through regulation.
So people at home and abroad, you heard it. It should be open market with no regulation. We listen to that. Create capitalism. Let's hear it again.
Welcome back. In studios, we have Dr. Philip Castillo, economist and lecturer at the University of Belize. So thanks for joining us to talk about sugar.
Thank you.
So we would like to know your opinion on the sugar scarcity.
So as we were told earlier, the cost of sugar in Belize is artificially very low. That has to change. So there has to be a change in the price of sugar for there to be any meaningful situation, any meaningful moves to address the current situation.
Okay, so everyone thus far is talking about the price and the price increase. So who would ultimately be in charge of increasing the price of sugar?
Well, consumers pay our final price increases. It goes back to the consumer because the current price, it's a controlled price. And the aim of price controls is to keep prices artificially low for the consumer. Sugar features a whole lot in Belize's what we call the basket of goods and services that measure inflation. Sugar is a major component in that basket. So obviously if the price of sugar changes, then the basket changes, then inflation in Belize changes. But then that has to happen because what's happening is that with the price being kept artificially low, then the supplies are non-existent. So the only way to make the supplies available locally is to increase prices.
Okay, so your professional opinion, we would love to know what recommendations or policy you would recommend to solve the sugar scarcity.
You want government response to be grounded in economics. What I've been hearing is that they want to put the BDF on the border, or to add to the responsibilities of the BDF on the border to assist in minimizing or reducing contraband. I do not see that as a sustainable solution. What I see as a sustainable solution is that you increase the price of the commodity, and then with government's increased intake of revenue from that commodity, government can then ensure that sugar becomes a part of the pantry. Right now, government provides a pantry to Belizeans who are below the poverty rate, the poverty level. So you could include sugar in that pantry. In that way, the price goes up, but then the Belizeans who could afford the price pay the increased price, and those who can't, then government would subsidize them by putting sugar as a part of the current pantry that it provides to persons who are below the poverty line.
Mr. Chairman, may I get a shot?
Go ahead, Mr.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Brackett.
Thank you, sir. In the first place, both of these gentlemen on the clips, the one with Mose Hyde and Mr. Marshallek and the young lady, and the other one with this gentleman, so-called economist by by profession and title. Both of them are talking about corporate capitalism, but they're not talking about the same corporate capitalism that is benign. They're talking about corporate capitalism that is cancerous. Okay? You have a lot of different corporate capitalism, different models of it all over the world. China is exercising a particular model of corporate capitalism, which is completely different from the one America is exercising and the one that the Russians are exercising or the ones that the Europeans are exercising. There are a lot of different variations. But there's what you call malignant capitalism, which is where the people with the capital, by all means, by whatever means necessary, even if it means suborning the government so that the government can take and use their military forces to keep the public in check and to keep the farmers them in check and to keep the cane farmers them in check and to keep any and everybody else in check, so that these vultures can have the people become what you call modern economic slaves. Okay? There's a major difference, and people like to conflate and mix these things up. And every time you hear about capitalism, they're talking about malignant capitalism, and they're implying as if that is the only form of capitalism, when in fact, capitalism has served different parts of the world well. Where it did not serve well is where you have these so-called corporate raiders, vultures, hyenas, junkos, whatever you want to call them, who just fleece on the people and muzzle the people when the people they want, demand their right. Like in our constitution, it says that nobody should have to work under no adverse condition, such as slavery or semi-slavery, and that people should not be made or put in a situation where they have to live with that kind of situation. But in effect, that is what our current government and previous government have been doing to the people. They sell out their assets, or they credit their assets to themselves, and we have no money-making government entities or assets, and the government have to resort to collecting taxes as a means of paying its wage bill and other survival requirement services. And they don't collect taxes from these big corporations who suborn them and give them a little something on the side. Like as in the case of where they were planning to give 25 years tax-free
to
Portico. And they're saying that, well, Portico is not going to get anything more than where other corporations got. Other corporations got 20 years. Others have 15 years. Others have 20 years. Others have 10 years. And after the time is up, then go back and then renew the time for another 10, 20, 15, 30 years. So the government has never historically collected the amount of tax that was due to the Belizean treasury. And on top of that, these, I don't want to disrespect myself or the show or anybody else, but these people are taking hundreds of millions of dollars out of our economy and pass to Mr. Ashcroft and to any and everyone else that come by, you know. Then they look to give Portico opportunity for creating one bank. As a matter of fact, so that they could export the money that they make in Belize, out of Belize, without any restrictions. When in fact, most of the money that these companies make from the tourists who pay for their traveling with their credit card or with other assets that are never, that kind of resource never land in Belize. All those payments for those trips that those people make is paid in America and other places through their credit cards or through other means. And that money never gets to Belize. It's never taxed. And the money that should be taxed in Belize, like the head tax on the people in land in Belize, half of that and more sometimes is being taken back or given back to these big corporate companies as incentive to come and make them big hustle of we country. That's why if we country can't get forward, or get move forward or become successful. But I'll deal back, Mr. Chairman. That's what the man they were talking about.
Thank you, Mr. Brackett.
corporate capitalism that is not benign, that accrues no
That is
benefit
correct.
to the country.
Thank you, Mr. Brackett. But as a
Yeah,
part
you're
of
welcome,
what
sir.
you were saying, let's not forget that the government is at fault for what is happening within the cruise tourism and these ports. Because, as I said before more than once, they are always telling themselves. Because you heard what the minister from Cayo South had to say. They knew that Belize can only take what? One cruise ship terminal. So, if he is saying that from his mouth, then it is safe to say that they never have it in good faith at all for the Benfine group. That was never to get off the ground, and that is why they are in receivership as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
I go to you, Mr. Wade.
You know, Leonard, I thank you for putting that up very very nicely, because that is exactly what is going on in Belize, right? Um, Mr. Marshalik, he
You're
has
welcome.
his assignment. He cannot,
You understand his assignment?
yeah, he cannot talk about anything else otherwise than letting BL look good and letting the stockholders look good, and they worry about, yeah, about the blackouts, and the poor people is suffer, and he they worry about satisfy the big people, right? That's the way he is put there to do, right?
He's a corporate
And
liar.
yes, and as far as that, like I said, we talk about vertical, and we talk about what it's for, and who are the players who profiting, and you have the other Feinstein, and they will get some money too, from the taxpayers, because
Mm-hmm.
we had said that they will take the
Mm-hmm.
people to court, they will take the country to court, they will not take Briseño, because they will not take the UDP, right? But they will take the people
Mm-hmm.
of this country, the taxpayers, to court. Same as Ashcroft. Ashcroft didn't reach the court because it was designed. He got his packet full right away, a Lee room, and is settle, and let everything look good, and like Ashcroft, they give the Belizean people a nice deal with the port and everybody, and anyway, minus this and plus that, and then they settle for pennies from the very man mouth, pennies on the dollar. That's what your the prime minister of this country said. Oh, Belize get away with pennies on the dollar, right? But we had talked about this. We knew that Ashcroft was going to take them to court, right? And we knew what was going to happen, right? And not to mention, like I say, the rest that will follow, right? But it's all designed. These are all this whole projects are for the PUP, to this government now, whether it was designed from the past government design, but this government will push through that agenda so that this government make these big people happy, because they are the big donors, right?
Mm-hmm.
You hear the man Geg says about the 7 figures, right? And I could go on and go on, but you know what? Who is me, right? What I'm saying is that they always tell on
On your
themselves.
own mouth, Mr. Wade.
Yes,
On
they
your own
always
mouth.
tell on themselves, and they're not all are we shut we mouth, because I don't want taxpayer. I pay my taxes, right? And I want to see it goes to a needy and where it should go. I don't want to see it goes in Ashcroft packet all the time, man, or in the politician packet all the time, man. No, man. It's not supposed to be. It's all wrong. And for a leader to use his office, past and present, for their own personal gain, right? When that's not what the mandate the people gave them,
Mm-hmm.
right? But they always sucker the poor people. and have them believe that wonders are they are doing wonders for the people when in fact they are not. Right? When in fact they are not. They are only satisfying their own egos and their own agendas and everything around their own. Right? Very few people prosper in this country, man. Very few poor people prosper. Who is addressing the blackouts? Who is actually addressing the shortage of water, especially now? Right? Who is addressing these things? Who is addressing the problem with the high price of gas in this country, gasoline? Who is addressing the high price of basic food items, man? Basic. And it keeps going up, and I keep saying it. People they punish.
When is the
right?
sugar coming back down? When is the price of sugar coming back down?
You get what I'm saying? Then you have this economist, you got to raise sugar. What is wrong with this man?
The man is sick in the head.
Right? That man
you
is
have credentials.
Right? When in fact, he don't know if they lower price, more people will buy. You fool. If you lower the price of sugar, more people will go buy. So that then you have to produce more. More big business. But you ain't talk no, you got to raise the price of sugar. Man, you have to be ashamed of yourself. And Mr. Man, if you don't know, we got 2 sugar factories in this country. 2. Right? Not 1. And you ain't talk about raise the price of sugar. What is wrong with you? Right? What is wrong with you? Where are you guys living?
Mr. Wade, it's another farm to put in the designer system. That will get more people.
So wrong, Mr. Chairman. So wrong. You have a BTL that is part owned by the people, taxpayers. What is so better than that? Right? Don't you think that this leader of this nation would want to see the people prosper? Huh? The BTL run smoothly for the people so the people could live good? No, what this fool did, took away and sent it to his own personal, because Smart is owned by Belizean, right? The Prime Minister of this country.
Mr. Wade?
It's so wrong, man. So wrong. And
Mr.
yet some of these people see these people as gods, kings, queens.
Mr. Wade?
When they are nothing but jackals, crooks in this country. Taking this country backwards.
Can I add a little bit to what you're saying?
Go ahead.
Can I add a little bit to what you're saying, sir? Mr. Chairman, can I add a little bit to Mr. Wade's comment?
So sad, man.
Going back to the tape that the chairman played earlier with Mr. Bernard, when he was talking about they gave the contract to the person that gave them the better deal, he was talking as if he have no brains inside of his skull. But other than enough brains to understand his assignment.
His assignment.
To talk a good talk, to make it look good on behalf of his Prime Minister, who had shares in Smart and who was getting his butt flagged because of the things that they were doing to try and crush BTL to make Smart succeed and override BTL. At the end of the day, BTL was taken, Smart was taken away from the Prime Minister.
Mr. Chairman, there is a question from Mr. Clifford Hoare. Says, good night. Do you have any insight on the PUC/BL bill they are trying to pass on solar system for domestic use?
That's a big subject.
Let's answer, right?
Can I answer?
Go ahead.
Can I head that off?
Go ahead.
Can I head that off? Notice the pattern, and I had some things to say about this thing with regulation, right? But notice the pattern. Remember, one time we had WASA, right?
Mm-hmm.
Authority. Then it became a company.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, when the South African or wherever they may come from, corporate Jankro raiders came to Belize. People know a weak fence there. One of the things they were trying to outlaw, water. You never want your whole water catch water in a tank or catch it from an underground aquifer. You couldn't get water. No, conscience driven. I remember I'd called him and I'd rung the alarm bell. Water is akin to a human right. You don't need for anybody tell you that. You know, you have to drink water. You can't drink oil. You can't drink whatever. You need water. The thing is that that company was all about profits. And when you leave, when you go to, you know, these bills, you have to wonder where these bills come from, whose initiative, whose inspiration, but more than that, not even inspiration, right? Like they have a nightmare element, and you notice they usually that a accompaniment, right, to some corporate raiding going on, right? So
who gonna get the
have, with respect to anything as to solar, right, and the use in homes and so on, I would want us to look at the bill and then we can go over that some more another time. But I would, my intuition right away is that what we will have to be on the lookout for is that we have to go through with clinical precision that enough in the interest of the people of Belize. And I want to tell you something. If then they say solar as the next thing after painted bread or sliced bread, believe you me, then people don't have that and then they divide that up and so on, right? The thing is that if it's where, you see this as the antithetical thing, right? If it is, and I don't even want to repeat their message, but if you say you don't need youth regulation, right? Why you pass one bill about solar use, right? The sunshine don't go away, right?
Control.
Not just control, but control in the sense of it's just like the sugar. You want to grow it, you want to produce it, but in this post-colonial era, we never, I keep saying, and I don't know if people think I sound like scratch record. The simple thing is we did not give up imperial colonialism for corporate colonialism.
That's what drives our leaders. Sharon,
what we
that is what drives our leaders, though.
Mr. Brackett, you mentioned something that I noticed when I was looking at some things on the African continent and private companies going in. And around the world, you'll find that where you have resource-rich countries or countries which by their very quality of life, they have certain things which are the wealth, right? Mineral, human, and real green capital. One of the features you'll see the foreign companies go in and they will, under the guise sometimes of saying, okay, we're building a dam or we're building a bridge or we're doing something and we bring in the know-how, their workers, amongst them, they will have their security forces. But in addition to that, when you say anything starts to smack up, your own national security forces have to go police or guard anything that is on your territory that has private interest in it. Remember, I keep warning, even the police boots on private or right in front of private shops, stores, businesses. I've been warning for years, this smacks of something that like creeping colonialism. But with corporate colonialism, what you'll find is that you'll wake up one day to the nightmare. The writing is on the wall. I want to say that why they not like regulation suddenly? Regulation, utilities regulation, the regulatory body, the public regulatory agencies of government and of the nation and state, they protect against runaway capitalism, unbridled. They are the oversight agency, the rate setting agency, the compliance, the protection. And I can go on and on and on. Because after all, whatever people come with, people like come and say they invest. But you know what? The investment can't match what we as a country have by way of our assets or location. I keep saying they don't bring sand to the beach. And I want to say that give me regulation and governmental responsibility any day. But the one thing we now do, you notice the series of R's that they are bringing in again? This alone R. Rampage, runaway, ravenous, rabid, rake and scrape. Are we supposed to sit down and watch the rape? Our resources, our people, our dignity, our patrimony.
So long as the right people get to going.
The only part of
So long as the
asset
right
the
people get
Belizean
to
get,
going.
that
They're already
ticket part,
making laws to silence us.
the only part of
What you talking
assets that Belizeans get and the country get, that the chicky chick part of the stick.
They're already making laws to silence us. Right? So we shouldn't be talking about what.
No, they can't make laws to silence the people.
They are
That is
already
a
doing it.
blunder. Any government or anybody which makes laws to silence people will find that the freedom of speech, right? And you know why not like you have some people out there, oh, when they celebrate emancipation, with this, so no get one day. But I then say people in office talk, oh, Bob Marley talk about Pimpers Paradise in the abundance of water, the fool is thirsty. We must emancipate ourselves from mental slavery. Where is the emancipation? Who have TV? Who have radio? Who have newspaper? Who have mouth? The Belizeans were like gossip that the national pastime. You want clear one room? You start to talk something sensible. You have 2 or 3 people enter, they want to get tired. Unless you have the Rumparaho crowd or you're the pass out weed. You know what? That time for we people have one moratorium on slackness. That time for we say we will have 1 week of sobriety. Sober up, listen, see what they happen. Start to think again. Start to focus. No lot of confusion. This thing's simple. And you know what? We can't be. Remember I shared the thing about the big clown and the baby clown, the civic? When the main thing that me mass and more, and the clown with the clown shoes about 10 times the size of his foot. They kick the small one, and when he get it right in at that part of him, the assets part. And he lean over and he look at the crowd bewildered. And he asked mass. And the crowd asked more. And the big clown look on the crowd. And the crowd the chair more and mass. Now how much more you no want? What language you no want it in? But you know what? This stick, the mandate is not a stick for broke the back of the Belizean people. Right? You know what? Belizean people, the thing have to fall for no eye. Even the slogan about sleep with no 2 eye. Everything we Belizean. If other people come here and go slogan there with your culture and your intuition, get back to it. We got with senses. You know, smoke the sense of me till you don't have no sense. Wake up, Belizeans, man. That time, you know what? There's a time when you have to put things aside.
Sharon?
Yes, sir.
Well, we are running out of time, and I think we at least should be able to do another round, no? Go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Brackett, if need be, Mr. Brackett, if need be, can we add 10? This discussion tonight? Yes, just add 10 on to it.
Go ahead, Mr. Chairman, but I don't really think we got that much left, sir.
Okay, Ms. Fitz.
I don't want to commit to what I know we don't have, you know? Embarrass up myself.
Ms. Fitz, on what you said, it is highly appreciated. And also, the open conversation that should be spoken about solar systems I want to say this to the Belizean people at home and abroad. I have read that bill, and the bill is not genuinely done to help the Belizean people. But
As usual,
as I have said, Mr. Clifford Hoare asked the question. Good night. Do you have any insight on the BL bill they are trying to pass on solar systems for domestic use? Yes, I do, Mr. Hoare. I do have, and I will go to that for you.
They say useful solar power has been wasted because solar producing businesses and homeowners are charged by BEL if they export their excess production back into the grid at that. The new legislation has been introduced, which includes tariffs and disincentivized future grid friendly solar power production. Your response to this?
Absolutely not. The new legislation is actually geared to opening up the energy market, the energy sector, and it is exactly intended for that, so that people who are now using solar panels on their homes, in their businesses, may have an opportunity to sell the excess into the national grid. So it's quite the opposite of the statement.
But the new legislation will discourage the uptake of grid tied to solar in Belize. Your response to that?
No, absolutely not. It is intended to have the excess go into the grid.
Speak to us on the idea of leveling the playing field in a manner of speaking to provide equity in this particular industry.
Listen, so I think this is for the first time in Belize, in the history of Belize, you see a piece of legislation that is actually opening up the energy sector. And I think that is important because it has been dominated so far by BEL. And so what this legislation does is really open up the fields for even new power producers. It opens it up so that people at their homes individually, people who want to use for their businesses, people who want to use for their industrial sites, can now link into the national grid. And so for the first time in our country, we're seeing where the energy market is being opened up to the entire public.
Mr. Chairman?
I'm here to say this to the people at home and abroad and us sitting here. That is not true. And I will say it loudly. I am not an expert, but I will go to the
PSIA feels like the process that PUC and BEL endeavored to undertake over the past 9 months or whatnot with public discourse hasn't achieved these goals as well as they could have. And we would like them to come back to the table and take another look at and revisit the legislation and modify it so that it's more beneficial both to the consumer as well as to the grid. First and foremost, there is already an installed user base around Belize who have made the investment and purchased solar, and they want to not only benefit themselves, but also benefit the grid. They have the capacity to produce extra solar power beyond their own needs to support the grid to the tune of over 250 homes worth of energy. Just the 12 signers on our group at this point, and we're growing day by day. The new legislation, which has been proposed and implemented now, it prevents the investors from seeing a positive economic return, a short-term economic return. So the return on investment for somebody wanting to get into rooftop solar, especially say in the residential sector, individuals who want to put solar on their homes to reduce their own energy reliance and also and the energy cost, and also to benefit the national grid and their neighbors. These oftentimes will see their investment requiring a 10, 12, 15-year return time frame, which is just not economically encouraging, right? So it's a discouraging legislation in those cases.
The effect with that is
PSIA feels
the effect with that is once we're out of electricity.
We have a time problem.
Go ahead, Mr. Brackett. You heard it for yourself, not from me.
Both of these gentlemen we're talking different issues. In the first instance, okay, let me deal with the last one first because it's the easiest one to just banish. The last gentleman was talking about corporate acquisition of the possibility or the ability to be able to privatize production of electricity, which will put us right back to where Fortis had us when they were running the private BEL. And I have a lot more that I would like to say about that to clarify what he was trying to say and the way he was making his presentation. But I need to go back to Mr. Shabat. Mr. Shabat was talking a good talk, but not walking the right walk. Okay? He's stipulating that to open up this thing so that the public can start using the solar panel on top of the roof and other things to create the excess that they need, that they have more than what they use in their house, put it back into the grid. That requires a specialized piece of equipment to be able to have that occur at each and every location. That means that there's a large market then that's going to come in to sell all kind of equipments for those purposes. It's all a corporate takeover of. It doesn't solve our national issue. Our national problem right now is the ability to be able to produce the electricity either by the turbines, which is very expensive, as one of our previous analysts had mentioned, or by letting the government take onto itself the ability to be able to produce one smaller solar farm right now, rather than the big one that they don't get whatever they plan the money, the $70 million to do the 60 megawatts solar panel. They could have done 20 megawatt, put one in at PG, and then you don't have to transmit as much electricity from the main grid up to PG because it's too far away. Then put one other one maybe the Kayo, so you don't have to transmit all the amount of energy up the Kayo. Or you could use the electricity coming out of the dam to produce the Kayo, and you put the other solar farm close to, like what I said before, at Bomba to produce and supplement for Belize. And then the third one, you could end up putting up in Orange Rock or Corozal. So these things are feasible and possible, all under the control of government, so that you don't have no privateers coming in and fleecing the public. Because once you have privateers come in and produce that electricity, you have to pay them whatever they demand for it. Otherwise, you don't have the electricity. And we are back to square one. That subject should be taken up on another night where we could have a whole full show and discuss it, and people could hear the details, because there's a lot of information that needs to be available to the people for people to understand what these people are talking about. Professionals are talking in a professional way to serve their own personal interest. The last gentleman was talking about the price that they're paying right now doesn't justify the people who don't have the solar farm to go any further or produce any more. What he's talking about is corporate gaining a little higher price, which means that your electricity will cost you, instead of 40 cents a kilowatt, no, they'll charge you maybe 50 cents or 60 cents, so that those private entities could get for their return on for their investment in, say, 15 years. You won't have to invest as a private person, individuals, upfront capital that you, the Belizean public, have. But anyhow, we need to take it up on we are beyond the time.
Mr. Brackett, let me say this quickly.
Yes, sir.
I would think that a personal homeowner would be best suited to his or her own solar panel without trying to put back in the grid. And I will say this. Why would I say this? Because if you are putting back into the grid, it's a hazard. What happens when the regular service goes out? When the regular service goes out, you know what will happen? Yours will have to turn off also.
Or a surge.
Not to get these guys that are working.
Your TV will get shut out, will get busted out, your refrigerator will get messed up.
Right.
The whole system. And then you have to go rewire your system afterwards if you're having any major surges. These things have to be controlled. But anyhow, I'm big discussion going.
Right. But at any rate, as I was saying, the taking over of assets.
That's what it's all about.
And the point in the direction of capitalism. I mean, Belizean people really need to wake up.
It's all about
Mr.
privatizing
Wade, let me
electricity
go to you.
again.
We're close at time.
Thank you, thank you. I'll make it quick because we only have like 7 minutes. But you know, this is only me, right? I think that any Belizean has the right to whether he want to use BL or solar, right? And there should, because that person, if you want to go solar, has to purchase all his equipment. Everything he got, the government and BL and purchase. So why are you going to purchase all this equipment to do your domestic, for your domestic use? I want to sell the rest to BL. So what that Shabbat guy is talking, he's talking a bunch of crap, right? But anyway,
that's what I'm saying.
Anyway, I think it's wrong for the government want to dictate to you
by law
what you pass these laws that you got to get a license from them to, and I understand it's going to be up to like $500. This talk has been going around, guys, if you don't know, right? You got to go and get a license for them and round about $500 to put solar in your house for your own domestic use. Why do they want to regulate that, which is so wrong, right? That's to show you the level of hypocrisy and the level of
the double talking, I tell you.
And then, like I say, taking away your rights, right? Your rights as to want to live a free person, right? A free man, right? So you cannot choose, without them being dictating to you, man. Come on, right?
It's a weird. Some special person and get a contract for bringing their equipment into,
Exactly. Exactly. So I think people should come up, get up in arms. Give me a 1 minute there, Mr. Chairman. I think people should all lobby around this because people are seeing where BL is letting them down and they want their own little solar panel, especially in the rural areas, man, to do their own thing. They don't want government or BL to be, checktizing them or interfering in their service, right? Where is that freedom? Where is that freedom?
Capitalism.
Mr. Government, you're so wrong, right? And I think it's so wrong for a Belizean to pay you and ask you permission to put solar in their homes, right? To get your okay. It's so wrong for you to be dictating, Mr. Shabbat. You have to be ashamed of yourself.
And the sun is free.
Mr. Wade, again, it comes back to capitalism.
Exactly.
Look, this thing just came about, Let's not forget, Mr. Wade.
People are talking about
when
it.
These ladies were down in your area where you were born, doing it for free. And the government see how good it was working. All of a sudden, they want to regulate it. And all of a sudden, anybody that put it in their home. Right.
It's a good money making scheme, so they want to capture it. That's what it's all about.
Right.
We got 4 more minutes there, Mr. Chairman.
Let me go
Just
to
to
you.
remind
We
you.
are close to closing.
Okay.
You have 3 minutes.
I'd want to say this is very interesting, right? But I want to keep it simple, no? And I'm saying as an environmental lawyer, specialization. Well, somehow they put energy on it, right? But it's more the environment, energy and environment, right? What I see right away is, as I said, they simply just like the water. And it's about privateers, profiteers, and marketeers. It's not about the people, and it will be looked later on as though it has a law of unintended consequences. But to my mind, it's not about opening up the energy sector unless you open it up to rake and scrape by whoever out there. I actually more comfortable with BEL. And my recommendation as a citizen and from a point of view of conscience would be that the very thing with energy and green energy is that Belize we could still have a small footprint, and this is one of the areas where the home base and individual cells and solar cells. My dream was always to see every bus stop with a solar panel. Most of it zinc roof, solar receptive, right? And this is where when you go back to your culture, it's so easy for us to harness. The energy is right around us, right? Then gone with hydroelectricity, I think that was not well thought out. And I believe it was because certain people were
Monopoly and
making money
control.
off the building up of so on, and the cost and the environment, everything. It cost us more than it will ever gain us. And that was like 2001 when you had those cases, right? Look where we are 20 years after. You notice what the private persons seem to be saying. And with solar, even when DFC was encouraging people to borrow and, convert and so on, there are cabins, there are homes, there are guest accommodations, right? It is that with solar, you take 15 to 20 years, it is said to recoup your investment, to break even. But I don't buy that fully because technology will be improving, has improved, so that even something like this, to my mind, we have scientists, we have inventors, home and abroad, right? This is not rocket science, right? We can say if anybody will take profits, let it be through BL again, right? And if anybody will break even, let the John citizen, Jane citizen break even. And you also build a culture of self-reliance, green technology, green economics, and so on, right? Then I see public utilities commission and BEL as being the data banking and registry, right? You don't have to charge people a license, but you would say, you know what? You want to know what is happening in the sector, and then the protective thing and the training and so on. Bring that from public sector as well. But you don't need anybody to be middleman in this thing because the corporate raiders are already there.
Belize is always seen as a profit-making venture for others, not Belizeans.
Mr. Chairman, you're out of time there, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. So
Yes,
we cannot
yes,
just
we
afford.
are.
We cannot afford to just have foreigners come in and capitalize on every little thing that's available or seen as a potential in Belize. We can't have the politicians and just parcel out everything that is government control or that is money making and push
left.
away investors or push away local Belizeans,
did
and
away
they
with
as
everything
politicians
already.
control everything.
Nothing left.
That's what our problem is. But anyhow, we are beyond our time, and again, Mr. Chairman,
take that up on Wednesday.
That point, no, sir.
I want to continue
Right.
that on Wednesday.
Yes,
Come
sir.
on here.
Well said,
Wednesday.
Mr. Brackett and Ms.
I
Spitz.
will.
And
Ms. Spitz want to continue that
Mr.
on Wednesday.
Wade.
That's the same
And
solar.
I would
The
want
same
to
issue
know,
here.
I know we are closing, what would happen if any one of us was living, or a couple people are living in a windy area like the Keys and wanted to install some wind turbines? Would they want to take that over too?
Allow me to say one thing.
You got to get
quickly,
permission
please.
for that.
Allow me to say one thing quickly, please. When you give sugar to people and they say you want to give them sugar, what got sugar in a pantry? Remember when they put the weed in at the school? People actually want to say the candy weed tainted or drug tainted. No, it was drugs masquerading as weed. Stop holding out allurements or treat with people like simple pick me now. Wanna try give a little bag of sugar to talk
Sharon,
about holding out allurements to children.
The answer to that
they need
the
to
answer
stop
to that
that.
gentleman's statement. The answer
And we
to
produce sugar, we grow it.
Sharon, the answer
But
to that
we can't
gentleman's statement.
sweeten my tea with it.
Finish my statement on
Oh,
him,
my
right?
goodness.
I couldn't finish my statement on him, but the answer to that statement that he made about sugar and pantry is that how is the government going to afford pantry for 68% poverty in the country?
No. Keep them poor. You want to control people, keep them poor and uneducated, keep them coming like beggars. They even
Exactly
sugar
what I
water they
was
want to get.
saying.
It's wrong,
The
wrong, wrong.
designer system.
Wrong, wrong,
Designer
wrong, wrong.
system
And
is great.
no kind of sophistry
Right?
trying to explain it
10
away
seconds,
will
my
make
brother.
it right other
10
than
seconds.
wrong.
10 seconds.
Right.
You have to
Thanks,
throw that music.
thanks, Ms. Page. Mr. Wade, I go to you for the closing, sir.
Thank you very much, guys. It's always a pleasure. Look
I
forward
look forward
for
10 seconds.
another edition on Wednesday. We will continue this topic. Okay.
Good night.
We're out of time. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good night, Belizean.